Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the developer training. I am going to transition to Mark Lauritsen, and hopefully this class will be helpful to everyone. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon or good morning. This is Mark. Welcome to the end of week 5 of the course. So we are here at the 10/21/20 call, and today's point is to review the homework for week 5. We're going to hear, I think Devin is willing to present, or at least to talk to us about her experience. And then we'll give you a little preview of what's coming up for week 6 and 7, where we're going to pass the torch to John Mayer. One important announcement up front is that the syllabus online that you have probably downloaded did not have the latest and greatest links and material for the next 2 weeks. I put the updated syllabus in the resource center. So if you go to the mandatory introduction page as part of this course, the link there for developing templates for LawHelp Interactive online course syllabus is now the one I'm showing right here. And in it, the links for the videos and materials in relationship are there. For that not having been there before, but I would encourage you, please download and use those going forward. Let's see. So again, the work this past week has been somewhat lighter than usual. We want to talk about this, answer any questions about this or other aspects of the course. And before we dig into this, let me just see if anybody, panelists or attendees, have got anything they want to say. I'm going to unmute all of our attendees in case they do want to say anything. So if you are muted, you're probably locally muted. Anybody got a comment or a question before we dig into the week 5 work? Okay, but feel free to interrupt. So again, week 5 was really some miscellaneous aspects of how we can add guidance to hot dog style interviews. And there were some dialogue elements created, a new dialogue itself. We had a variable being placed inside of the dialogue element. And so Devin, if you're game, I'm going to make you presenter, and you can show us what you did and take us through any questions or issues you may have run into.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, here it comes.
Okay, let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see it.
Okay, great. So let's see. First, I guess we did just a quick review of the way that you can add sort of help information for, move this over.
Okay.
For the end user. And so we looked at the petitioner information dialog. Mine is name details. I can't remember why, but I was hesitant to rename it, so just bear with me. Pretend it says petitioner information.
Good.
So there's the resource tab up here where you can add text that will give a little bit more information for the end user. Where it says here, petitioner is the one filing the divorce petition. So then we learned about another way to kind of do some validation for the user. So I'll just cancel that. Going into the custom interview here. We created a new dialogue for like a warning for people who choose a state outside of Montana.
Okay.
Let's see, where did I?
Was that happening in the interview or was that happening in the dialogue?
Oh, right. So
You can
Sorry,
just
let me
you can
go.
double click on petitioner details right there where in front of you. You probably know that, but that's a quick way to move around in Hot Docs.
Right. Okay. So yeah, here's we created the warning dialogue and
Dialogue element, right?
the dialogue element. Okay, so this then we made it bold as well by right-clicking on the text and changing the character format to bold.
Right.
Let's see. What else did we do?
Well, show how that dialogue element only shows up when the user has done something that requires a warning. How does that happen?
Right. So, like, if we choose Montana, it goes away. Let me think. That was with the interview. So, no, sorry.
You may find it useful to just run the entire interview. So if you
okay, so let's just cancel test assembly. So going to petitioner details.
I think Montana may be at the top of the list, which is why it's hard to find. Maybe it's not.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
So then the warning dialog goes away, and
right.
So we did that in the petitioner information dialog.
Right. And so
right.
Before you close this, you can just right-click on petitioner details there, and that'll bring up edit. There you go.
Great. Okay. So on the script tab,
right,
we defaulted it to Montana, and then we said to hide it to hide the warning if Montana was selected, but to set error text to show
if it's not equal to Montana, right?
It is not equal, right? And then I guess these little forward slashes, I'm assuming is kind of just canceling out the script command of show.
Right. Yes. Yeah, so whenever you put those,
yeah. It kind of just turned it into nothing, right?
Right. That just we're commenting it out. So it turns green, and Hot Docs ignores it. Anything after those two slashes, which is a very handy tool to have when you're working with Hot Docs.
So then we also added, there was the thing that we did where we added the petitioner's name to as the variable of the petitioner's first name in the dialogue.
Dialogue element. Yep.
Yeah.
So if you bring up that dialogue element, which should be right.
Let's see.
Yep. I'll let you. Right. There you go.
Yeah, we put in petitioner name first is not a resident of Montana. So it would say, like if you put in test, it would say test is not a resident of Montana.
Right.
So if I change this to any other state, the first name is test. Well, that was the first part that we did, which I guess we kind of overrode when we created this error text.
Right. So there's two different ways to get that error, right? The one you presently have, which uses that new error text feature, or the dialogue element conditionally showing, which has that variable in it. And it's up to you which one you want to use. This one, of course, makes it a little bit. If you have an error text, Hot Docs will prevent you from moving forward. So that's an advantage of error text. It actually stops the user in their tracks.
Right, yeah, you would want to use that when you know, you don't want to have somebody go wrong, I guess, for the more important details.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Then we did, was that everything with that warning? I guess I think we did that later on, right? In the homework sort of.
Yeah, I forget the sequence exactly, but it looks like you got it.
Yeah.
Got it working.
So let's see. Right, so this is the error text, right?
Right.
So that created that hard validation where you can't move forward unless,
Mm-hmm. If it's not Montana.
right. Okay, so that was that part of it, and then we talked a little bit about, I guess I'll close this, the children of the marriage. Where's my component? Oops. So it was like in the interview, was it, we added something where you would sort of change the button text to be more user-friendly, more descriptive.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's a repeating dialogue in this list, and it comes with a button, add another, and you change the label on that button to add another child, I think is.
Right. So
You want to go back to the first tab there, and right in the middle of the screen, yeah, where it says
add button text here.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so yeah, that made sense when I was doing it. I couldn't remember now how I did it, but so that then showed this add another child is more descriptive than just add another.
Exactly. The more you can orient the user, the better.
Right.
That's another place, by the way, where you could actually have a variable in the button label. So if you wanted to say, you know, add another child in addition to Joe, or that's not a good example, but it's one of the cool things about Hot Docs is all these different places, dialogue elements, dialogues, buttons, and other things can be variabilized and make it much more responsive to the user's answers.
Right. So I'll just close that. Where was the other? Here. So yeah, I guess if we put the chevrons in here, we could enter
Yeah, if you got another, right. If for some reason you wanted to have some answer to a prior question in that very label, you could do it.
Okay. So then we did, let's see, open. Oh, we added a welcome.
Oh yeah.
Dialogue. So that was in the custom interview. So created the welcome dialogue, and it has these dialogue elements. So a welcome message. Let's see if we just do.
Oh, right.
So welcome to the Montana divorce template. We added a link, and I added this note as a description based on what was talked about in the recording, to give the user some kind of indication of what was going to happen when they clicked on the link. Let me see if I can remember how to show how we did that.
Okay.
So this was a horizontal divider element. So we opened the new element, made it horizontal divider. We made it big, 200% of dialogue font, and we just put it in the center so that it appeared the way you saw. this was the link dialog element. So we selected web link, and this is general Montana Divorce Help website, added in here, and then we added link text so that it looked, you know, like something familiar rather than the hyperlink.
Right.
And then I can't, let me think, where was the way that you could make it? Oh, so you could choose on the options tab whether to make it a button or a hyperlink, and I tried it both ways, just to play around with it, and I liked the way it looked as a hyperlink, so I just left it like that. But if you change it to button, this is kind of what the homework
okay, experiment with
wanted it to look like. So that was that, and then the last thing was to create the explanation where I said, you know, this will open in another window, and I made it bold, just to kind of help the reader. So that was that, and then we said, okay, let's add it. We had to sort of really add it to the interview, because it's a custom interview, but I think it was also noted that if it was the default interview, you would had to affirmatively insert the variable into the template at the top to force it to ask this first.
Right. Yep.
And the same would be true for the finished dialogue created. So then I think that was the next thing. Where we created the finished dialogue and created a finished message. Congratulations, you've completed the interview. Right. Here's what to do now. Obviously, just left it kind of blank, but that's the idea for that.
Right.
And that it, I think that was it, the homework.
Cool, that all looks beautiful.
Yeah, so I found it like fairly straightforward. I suppose I'm following the steps. I think it's starting to really click. So it's just using the elements over and over again and using the tools repeatedly.
Right.
Has really kind of helped it finally sink in.
Yeah, it's going to keep sinking. I think that's the way these things work. I mean, the more you use it, the more you'll have kind of a mental model of how the pieces fit and what to do where. That's probably the biggest challenge of these things. There's so much power, you know, in the hot doc scripting language and the tools they give you. It's easy to get lost. So
yeah.
You know, and learning with a scripted homework, you know, I think, as you say, you'll understand it while you're doing it, but then when you step away, it's like, wait, where's that? How does that work? What does that mean?
I think it's been really good to also do the sort of generic hot docs tutorial lessons alongside to give you basically like two different, you know, use cases for the same activities. So that's been helpful to really contextualize it.
Yeah, and then presumably you've got a real project that under development, and that's going to be a third context to really hack away at these ideas.
Yeah, that's going to be the one that really, I think, really forces it to click.
Do you have any other general questions or uncertainties about the whole range of the work you've done on the course so far?
I'm not sure. I didn't have any questions specifically about this week. But yeah, I think, like I said, it's just kind of slowly coming into focus, and I'm working, you know, collaborating with some of my colleagues on trying to get a real life project going, but it's been a bit slow. So I'm looking forward to getting dug in and trying to decide, you know, where it's going to be the most useful, not to, you know, repeat the work that somebody else has already done, but also get a project that's useful enough that makes sense to start. That's kind of been tricky, but that's the process.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think, as Claudia, I think, repeatedly reminds us, doing a project is much more than the technical dimensions, right? There's all these kind of human herding cats and dealing with domain experts and busy people. So I think a lot of the recording this past week was focused on that kind of project management, overall workflow, how to think about these things, the importance of testing, and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Andres or Brittany, have you guys got any similar questions, issues? Did it go smoothly for you?
Yeah, I think this.
Sorry, Brittany, I think we had dueling organizers. Go ahead.
All right, I was just gonna say, I think this week was pretty straightforward.
Good. That's a nice way to wrap up the hot dogs part of the course. Andres, how about you?
Same on my end. I found it to be pretty straightforward and shorter than last week for sure. So I'm really excited to join the next two sessions on A2J because I think the project that we're working on will ultimately use that as a shell. But I think this has given me a good perspective, I guess, about the importance of also having a nice like hot dogs interview to go along with the A2J interview. And then one thing that I was talking to Claudia about the other day was like the fact that there could be like the two interviews could be used.
Right.
Yeah.
Sort of a two-headed template, right? One head is A2J, one head is hot dogs.
Yeah.
And you post both of them, and depending upon which user prefers which interface, they can go in either door. Cool. So Claudia is pointing out, by the way, that our monthly call coming up next week, next Tuesday, I think, or maybe it's 2 weeks, I've lost track, the 27th, yeah, it is next week. We're gonna focus a bit on some of the next level challenges of automating Word templates. And there's some other calls going on, I think one happening tomorrow that Claudia has put into the chat. Let me see if John Mayer wants to give us a quick preview of what fun stuff is coming ahead. And again, if anybody has a question or a comment otherwise, feel free to jump in.
Sure.
There you go.
I was just getting my screen ready in case there was anything worth showing, but I probably don't have to show my screen. This is, it's gratifying to hear you say it's sinking in, and because that's exactly what's supposed to happen. You always start with some big new complicated thing, in utter bewilderment, and
Yep.
and you slowly start to gain muscle memory or mental muscle memory or user interface memory of like, oh yeah, I put that there, oh yeah, that goes there, oh yeah, and then you get a little better at it, and you feel like this surge of power in your brain and in your chest, like I can do anything.
Right.
And that I don't know, that serotonin rush or endorphin rush is so common to all learning about coding. So that's great to hear. What's interesting is you now have this like high on hot dogs, and we're gonna kick you off the cliff into a brand new user interface, and you're gonna be back down at the bottom and have to climb back up through unfamiliar stuff. It's funny. The goal behind A2J Author was always so that the subject matter experts, theoretically that's you, didn't have to hire a programmer or have a programmer at your elbow in order to automate a document. This is old, boring statements, but it's only in the last 5-10 years or so that more and more lawyers and more businesses are starting to realize that they can handle a lot of this automation tasks themselves rather than have to have a full-blown and very expensive IT department or development or DevOps, as they call them, to do the work for them. And that's the revolution that we've been riding since the TIG program started. And that was the goal of A to J Author, was that the subject matter expert is close to what is being automated and understands or has empathy for the self-represented litigant who is going to run through a simplified interface of filling out their own forms. But it's still a stretch, because you got to remember the SRLs are English as a second language, maybe haven't finished high school or their GED, maybe they're stressed out because of their legal situation, and this computer thing. How could this help me? I need someone to talk to, but there's no options there. This is their last best option, given the lack of live lawyers to help people. So the next 2 weeks is watching videos done by Jessica, who's out on maternity leave, but she's been doing these videos for years and years, and following instructions, guiding your hands for you until you gain again that same sort of oh, I see how this sort of works. It will appear quite confusing for a while until it doesn't.
That's a good warning and a good encouragement. Great stuff, John. Bart, have you got any?
One last thing. So
Sure,
there's two A to J exercises. The first one, to give you some context, the first one will show you how to essentially plug variables into a hot docs Word document like you've been doing. But then instead of writing hot docs dialogues to ask the questions, you're going to write an A to J author guided interview to ask the questions. And the second project, which is not next week but the week after, is we're gonna abandon hot docs entirely and show you how you use the document assembly tool in A to J author to automate a form, so that you spend all your time inside of just one tool, so that you'll have all of these different options for comparative sake in your head. And as always, we greatly value your feedback and discussing with you your experience. I'm done.
All right, thank you, John. Hey, Bart, you got any last-minute words of wisdom for our friends here?
Not really, but should we talk a little bit about the, furthering education?
Sure. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. We covered that, I think, in the video.
And also in the homework, I think there is an attachment. It may be a little dated, but go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to ask if people had questions about that, and whether they've had a chance to look at any of that material. And I guess the answer is not. But I would encourage people to explore that, at their leisure. There is a fair amount of material out there that's helpful. Stuff that's on the LHI website that's accessible, prior webinars, and videos of webinars and documents that were prepared in connection with those, and the list is has been very quiet in terms of people asking for help, but it's some information that's very helpful. And for that Abacus, the publisher of Hot Docs, now has is although I think that's become a little bit less useful these days, because the and because reading Hot Docs is not the latest. So a lot of people are
Mark, your audio is breaking up a little bit there. We're hearing buzzes and clicks.
Oh, I don't know what's causing that. So
That's better
how-
better at the moment.
yeah. So yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, and I would encourage people to explore it. I found it very helpful when I was learning hot docs to read a lot of stuff. The only thing I had at that point really was the hot docs help and there was a listserv that predated the forum. But I found it very helpful to kind of consume everything. Even sometimes when I didn't think it was something immediately relevant to what I was doing, I would read it and try to understand it, because what I found out was that 2 or 3 months later or a year later, I would have a problem where there was the solution. So I could say, I remember, seeing this, and I could go back to it and because there's, even though we've covered a lot in the training, there's quite a bit that we didn't cover, and particular problems that people will encounter in the course of developing interviews and templates that they will want to seek more information for.
Right, and it's usually more important to know that you can do something than how to do it, because you can always look up how. So I think Bart's point is, I mean, I think, at this point, take advantage of some of these resources. Give yourself a couple hours just to really browse through the entire help system, and you'll be amazed at the kind of things that are in there and that you wouldn't have thought of. And perhaps they'll come back to you in a few weeks or a few months or a few years when you're doing something and saying, I wonder if that would work. And next thing you know, you're off and running doing it. So it can be a lot of fun. As John Mayer also indicated, you're climbing this ladder of complexity, but you're gaining power and good feelings along the way. Claudia, any closing words from you? I don't want to cut this short, but unless folks have got questions or comments, we should wrap up.
And just I'm gonna call out. I wish I had pulled out the video for you guys. There is recording on a call where we go a little bit more in depth on system functionality, because LHI and A2J author, we work together and we are co-developing features and enhancements both in our software areas to serve the nonprofit and the court and the access to justice community. So here we're not going in depth about those modifications and enhancements that we do to the system, because we just want you right now to learn what was the original print and do something with the document, mail it, walk it over to the clerk or whatever. But over the past 10 years, we've added a lot of other things to the back end. And we're not going to get in depth because we want you to, you first have to know your ABCs and really how to put together a short 2-paragraph, 200 letter to the editor, right? 200-word letter to the editor. Once you get through that, then you can get, get more complex, So there's a video that's called Back to Basics that we did earlier this year. And I'm going to send it to the list that we have going with everybody. That video goes a little bit more on some of these additional enhancements and functionalities that we have done. Particularly this year, we really focus on e-submission, which is not e-filing. It's a light version of submission that meets the minimum standards of guides that were ratified by the court administrators in 2012. So all of that is already built in the system. So the good news here is if you get your basics and you build even the simplest form, you can start using that form to understand how that form can be a robust cornerstone of remote workflows and really revolutionize the way that you're working with attorneys, with non-attorneys, and with your clients or non-clients, as it may be. Because I think that at the end, that's the goal, to have access to justice for everyone, whether they're being served or not served, and whether they're being helped by a licensed attorney or a partner that is working with you that may have capacity, or a law student or a clinic and all of that. So the quick tips video goes into that, and I'll share it in the email. I promise, and I'm gonna put it in this folder's call. But just keep in mind that once you get through this, there's that additional learning to do, and I'm happy to work with you on specific things that we call out in that video, like legal server integrations, or adding the email modification, attaching documents, all of that other stuff that we are doing, and all other kinds of enhancements that we're not getting into, how to use some of the fields to really customize instructions to your users before they start the interview, when they get out. I mean, we've done a lot at the request of the community. So just calling that out, that we're not getting into it, but it's there. And hopefully you'll be authoring soon. And then once you get your first or two first forms, we can talk about expanded capacity and expanded workflows.
Yeah, and as you may have noticed, the content of this course is a couple years old. So there's been a lot of enhancements even in the last 3 or 4 years that are not even reflected or not even mentioned in the materials, like e-submission and e-signing, e-signatures and next steps and all kinds of cool things that are starting to be used by the community. Cool. Anyone else have a question or comment? If not, I will, with Claudia's permission, declare this this homework review session over. Encourage everybody to dig into the week 6 A2J stuff and join John Mayer, who will take the lead for the next 2 weeks on these calls. And thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you go forth and do wonderful things with this new knowledge.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.